I'm back on the C10. I've been pretty hard at work on this thing for the last week. I'm pretty sure I've gotten every little thing done, ready for this thing to go in, and I'll go ahead and go over it now, and then we'll see if we can drop it in. So first things first, we got the motor mounts in. So as you can see, this one's here, uses the bolts. This guy, I had to cut out the old one. So you can see, to make room for the AC compressor, they cut this all out, and that's where the stock motor mount went. The small blocks, the motor mounts are a lot further forward than on LS's. So the bottom mount was still kind of there, 1/4 inch thick plate, that all cut out. Luckily, I was able to bolt all this in without having to make new holes or anything, so that's all in there. Power steering lines, those ran all the way down and around and up for the passenger side. I've already taken the conversion metric AN fitting and put it on the new pump, so that'll line up. Maybe we'll shorten it, maybe not, it'll be super long. Wiring I pulled through last time, so that's all still not here. And then I've got the wiring that I'll use, like the starter, that's over there. The fuel line, I'll go underneath and show it, but instead of having the extremely sketchy feed and return that's meant for carburetor with 43 pounds through it and like 50 hose clamps, it's a lot of AN. I've got the filter regulator down there, the 58-pound one, and then once we get the manifold in, I'll figure out where to terminate this. As far as the exhaust, it's kind of a bummer. So all the way from the collectors to the tailpipes are one piece, so I can't just separate them and then have it connected somewhere else. So this one I already cut because it came up pretty high. This one I haven't cut yet. I'll figure out where I need to cut it for the new collector once the new collectors are in. And then unfortunately, it's an old school style plug for the O2 sensor, so I have to run different ones because otherwise I would cut them right above them and then just have the O2s already done. But I think that's everything for in here. You can kind of see all that wiring, the old LT1 wiring, that's gone. It's actually sold. The LT1's gone too. That's sold extremely fast, funny enough. And then we just got to, once we get everything plugged in, I'll run the new harness through here and try to figure out where the computer's going to live. It's definitely not going to live on the cowl like the old one did. Right, so this thing is way up in the air now. We've got the motor mounts on. So it's funny how these are, like I said, they're backwards from like what's on the Firebird. These usually chill on the frame, and then you've got the clams, or not the clams, the hook plates that bolt to the frame. And the other thing I forgot to show is that off camera, we've got the flex plate on, we've got the hub adapter on. So the LT1 is weird where the converter is a smaller bolt circle and it's further back in the trans. So you have to run the adapter either in front of this or behind this, depending on what your combination is. And then, like I said, so this is elongated down to like 1075. I've had this off, make sure everything measured up. But I think that's it. And then, yeah, so I've got the truck still up pretty high. I might have to lower it down to clear this, but this pan is pretty shallow, so let's see if we can get it into position. Cool. All right, yeah, the reason why I don't really want to lower the truck down is because of how low this motor is going to sit. I want to make sure that this distance isn't too long or short, and then I might have to, lift the truck up to the motor itself. Also on the ground, the control arms like to hit the feet of the hoist. I've got the motor semi where it kind of needs to be. I'm going to go underneath now and I'm going to take off the strap. So this strap is what's holding on the trans. Another reason why I didn't want to lift and lower the cab as I was lifting this in is as soon as that strap is gone, every time I lift and lower, I'm also going to have to mess with the jack underneath there. So let me get that underneath, see if we can get it lower. Check how that looks back there. I'm not liking what this exhaust is doing, so I might have to get underneath there and just chop it all off real quick. I think I might do that right now. All right, got this side off. No longer need it. All right, we're right about where it should hopefully self-locate, and then it's just a matter of getting all the tilting right. Okay. Kind of where it wants to be. So I lubed up the rubber, and we got this side to slip in. It just took some force pushing down. And this guy over here, this one doesn't quite want to slip into its spot, but I think if we wiggle enough and maybe lift it up and set it back down again, it'll want to go in. There it goes. Well, both sides are in. It's funny enough, there's actually a lot more room in here than I thought. The motor's a lot higher, I guess because the whole truck's in the air. Now it's a matter of I have to figure out where that trans lines up and see if I can get that mated and go from there. I was attempting to avoid this exact situation, but here we are. So it's got a 4L60, it's already swapped in, it was with the small block. I was assuming that that mating plane would not have moved because technically it was a small block, even though it was an LT1, it's still a small block. It looks like, in fact, it was pushed a little bit far back. So we will have to go underneath, slip that cross member forward. I've already got the bolts out, and then it does have, it's way too thick, but it does have a lot of room here, so I can elongate that and just slip it forward. But it's just about lined up. I was hoping it would just slip right in, but you know, of course nothing is that easy, but it's pretty close. See if I can mate them now, get them to slip together, then just take this cross member completely out. This is like 1/2 inch thick, but you know, elongate that, make it more open, and then we can just slip it forward and then bolt it in and then not have to move this guy. Cause drive shaft, it has, so I've already slipped it forward a little bit. So you can see that's how much more that witness mark. That's where it was before. It might be too short, but obviously we can just figure that out once it's mated. And so we do technically have the motor in. Motor mounts are in. I need to put the through bolts in, but you need to lube them up before you get them in. And then the transmission is in fact mated. I do have the bolts in. I now need to go underneath and line up all the converter bolts. That's going to be a challenge, but yeah, unfortunately the motor did have to come forward like, I don't know, like 1 inch, no, probably not, 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch. And it looks like the drive shaft isn't too, like the yoke isn't too short, but we're gonna have to pull the trans cross member, elongate that whole, like the 1/2 inch stick plate that's on there, bolt that down. But yeah, now it's just converter bolts. That's the last like difficult part. And then after that's done, it's just fun stuff, throwing it on top. So all 3 converter bolts are in, buried down way in there. Yeah, there's no way we can see from up here. But before I roll around on my back again to get the starter in and start plugging stuff in, I think I want to go to exhaust. So like I said before, we've got 3 options. I have a set of Trailblazer V8 manifolds, which are much skinnier than the truck ones, but they're still basically truck ones. Some Chinesium headers, which obviously don't have headers. These are literally just super shorty. They're much lighter and they look better, but this flange kind of comes out of a weird spot. And then we've got the Hooker and the Flowtech. I think these are the Flowtechs because they don't have the badge, but the swap manifolds. So I'm going to mock these all up, see what even works, and then I'll talk to the owner and see which route he wants to go. First, we got Trailblazer. Let's see. Oh, those actually fit like dead perfect. Let's see if I can get a bolt. So this was never the problem side anyway, because you see it's already got some clearance and then there's no steering and no brakes. So yeah, those ones already work on here. I'm pretty sure all 3 are going to work. Let me see what the other side looks like. Really hard to see, but these actually fit really good too. It looks like they just barely clear. So where the regular truck ones wouldn't. Actually, you know what? Is that contacting? Oh, okay, it's really close to contacting, not quite. I'll try the other ones, but it also clears that rod. Yeah, you can just see that down that line. Clears the rod, but I think it might come out down too low on the bottom. Let me look. So you can see there, yeah, the collector's right there, and then the extension we have would kind of put it pretty far down, and then we want to reuse this because of that O2, so that means it would at least have to come down to there, which is probably too low. We might not use the free manifolds, but then again, these definitely do fit. Like if you were doing this yourself and you didn't want to get swap manifolds, if you manage to find some Trailblazer ones, they look like they'll work. These out. I'll grab the Chinese. So these also do fit. You can see they're pretty, they fit better than the Trailblazer ones. But the problem is that because of that angle that I mentioned, it's resting against that stupid shift rod. So yeah, these definitely probably look the best and they're the lightest, but I'm not sure. Now for the heavy ones. Oh yeah, those clear. Okay, yeah, these actually, yeah, these fit really well. We got good clearance there. Even these brake lines that are all on my way, those are pretty much clear. The rod's not even close. Yeah, it's the furthest away from the rod to begin with. That brake line I might have to bend in, but it's also kind of annoying. Let me see what underneath looks like. Yeah, look at that. So that, yeah, that collector's way up there. We can even, yeah, cut that back a little bit. You can even just join it to this pipe. Got some line, not even close to this guy right here. So yeah, it makes sense. If you want to spend the money for the Hooker manifolds that swap in, there's definitely a reason why they exist. We got this exhaust manifold fully installed. And then on this side, I threw the starter in, so that's done under there. I'm pretty much done with going underneath the car for a little bit. Before I put on the other exhaust manifold though, I think I actually want to go inside and snake through all the wiring so I can plug in the crank position sensor, which is right above there, because it's kind of hard to get to with the manifold in. So we got the harness sitting here. I have to figure out which side is the engine side. Obviously we've got so that's all gonna stay in the cab. What's all like kind of semi-wrapped that's gonna go through, and it's gotta fish it through that guy right there. Starting to get the harness through, and then I got some things connected. So crank position, that's down there. Cam sensor, that one's done. Knock sensor, that's connected. Gotta, snake the trans stuff down there. I might put the manifold on soon so we can start plugging other stuff in, but gotta figure out exactly how much of this harness I want to leave in here compared to leaving here. I want to leave most of it because, funny enough, how this thing used to be, most of the harness was actually in the engine bay. It basically came out, looped, and then went back out the way it came so that the computer could be on display, but this stuff can all hide kind of somewhere around here. It's got a bunch of AC stuff over there, but yeah, we'll figure it out. I can throw the other big manifold on. Put this stuff out of the way. Before I finish bolting up that manifold, I'm gonna run the 2 power leads down to the starter, the actual, key starter, and then we've got the main power right there that goes up to this Ford solenoid. So, because I noticed that this manifold, it hugs that starter really close, so I want to get that all hooked up before I torque it down. So actually something I just realized as I was saying that, so the 2 starter leads, or I guess the 12 volt constant hot leads that run the harness, those were running off of the starter post, which was starting to burn because of how tight everything was. And then I went to go hook them up again, and it goes, wait a second, this thing has a Ford solenoid. Sure enough, yes, I can just tap it off right from here. I have no idea why the old one ran all the way down there. So yeah, I'll just wrap these guys up to here, and then obviously get the that lead to the starter, and then wherever the purple guy went. Manifold is fully installed. The wiring is down there, and then yeah, this guy is chilling up here. So I'll wrap this, see if I can get that out of the way. But next I want to send what's going to go deep down to the tunnel down there. So we've got the trans connection, the VSS, stuff like that. That's going to go down to that guy right there. So it needs to go to the passenger side. And then we've got the 202 sensors, which will go there. They'll be all the way up here. So not very long manifold, so not very far to go. So under here, we got the trans plug, that guy right there, and then the VSS, the output speed sensor, that guy's right there. And then actually this harness has an input speed sensor already wired into it. I'll just tape that away. If we ever want to do a 4L80, which we probably never will, but yeah, because the 4L60 uses the RPM and not the input speed itself. So before I go any further, I actually want to give this thing a test crank. So obviously there's no intake manifold. There is power to the PCM, but I have no hot pink ignition, and I have no, I don't think the computer's plugged in. And then, yeah, most of the sensors are undone, but the starter is hooked up. It's hooked up to there, and then I put a battery in it, and I've got the negative here. So I'm going to hook this up, turn the key, and assume it'll crank. All right, battery's on. Let's see what happens. So yeah, key on, obviously nothing makes any noise. And crank it. Cool. Yeah, with that I'm actually running out of things to do, so let me go ahead and get the intake manifold on. So I decided to get cracking on this thing off camera. It's pretty much 100%. Everything is hooked up that it can be. I still need to put on the alternator and the power steering, but those aren't really doing anything right now. And also because the hoses are going to be quite challenging. You can see that comes out and basically goes right there. So that will leave for now, but the intake manifold's on, coil packs are on, everything's plugged in the back. I also finished the exhaust. You can see you got the downpipes coming down there, these are running there, and then I cut these. These are way in a completely different spot. This one's pretty low, but looks pretty okay. And then yeah, we'll have to have some exhaust work done at some point to connect these, or put some junctions in it, because it goes all the way back to mufflers and tailpipes, all completely one piece. But I know that from firing these motors up, the 5.3 with just this exhaust is really not going to be that loud. Maps hooks up there. Map sensors here, everything's done back there. One thing I have left to do is the fuel system. So we've got that coming all the way down there from the filter regulator. I need to just terminate this, put this here, and then technically I need to go inside. I need to isolate the key on power. I need to figure out, remember which one that is. I'll have to look back at the video. And then also the fuel pump lead. So I've got, it's really long, actually no, I think it's in the cab. Yeah, Yeah, it's that guy right there, but it's going inside. I need to figure out how to get it to the fuel pump or just tie it onto the existing fuel pump wire. And then they said find the key and then just probably just wire it for now so I can get it on the key. And then it should start and run just like it did on the ground. So that fuel line is done. I hooked up the 12-volt power. I have not hooked up the fuel pump yet. I've traced the wire up to here. I might just cut it here and then run the one that runs all the way from in there down to that. But yeah, I'll connect that in a second. What I want to do though is hook the battery back up, crank, and see if I get ignition, which I can tell because the check engine light will illuminate as soon as I turn the key. In the driver's seat, got our check engine light and OBD2 port there, computer's there. So if I flick this on, perfect. So, and then I think I can crank too, but not start because there's no fuel. Yeah, cool. We have crank, we have ignition. We don't have gauges or anything. I think we got headlights too. Yep, cool. So headlights work, everything's hooked back up. I just have to actually hook up the fuel system. All right, I believe fuel pump is hooked up. I think everything should be hooked up. Let's see if it primes. Hey, there we go. Okay, cool. So what I'm gonna have to do, see if I can hear it. So I didn't redo it in the tune yet so the fuel pump prime is only 2 seconds. That's what it is for the factory because obviously the fuel pumps are in the tank. But for this thing being outside of the tank and all the way down there, I'm definitely gonna have to do it many times to get it to prime. So let me just double check everything and I'll see if I can give it a crank, but I don't know if it has fuel pressure yet. It might just crank and do nothing. I see no fuel leaking there, no puddle underneath the car. So I think it should start. Let's see. All right, see what happens. So I remember what the problem is. So here, you guys get to see what I'm dealing with this fuel system. This is the pressure side, by the way. We've got hose clamp, a freaking ball valve, which I had turned off, hose clamp, a filter, and there's the pump, and then obviously there's the stuff I added. So you can see that's where the AN starts. So yeah, that was why we weren't getting anything, is the fuel. I had turned this off when I had opened all this up. Hopefully in the future we can actually install the right type of fuel tank with an actual pump inside the tank, and then all AN and all, you know, -6 fittings. The problem is that if you go way over there, you can see, maybe it's upside down now, but that's where the air tanks are, is where the tank would go. So yeah, we have to figure out real estate under here, but let's go try it again. All right, let's see if the fuel pump sounds any different. There we go. There we go, okay. It's a good sound. So let's see if it starts, should fire it up. There we go. Okay, let me shut it down, make sure nothing's going on. This looks good, no fuel leaks. Try it again. Try no throttle pedal, so. No gauges here, can't really see anything. I think all the pressure's hooked up. No power steering or anything. No stated fuel leaks. Check hot start. Okay, I'll definitely have to work on that. Hold on, that sounds weird. Let me check out that. I do not like the sound of that fuel pump. I'm technically off the ground, but let me try something. So reverse. I think we're in gear. I see the motor moving, so yeah, I'm up on jack stand, so I can't really feel the drive shaft doing anything. So I got this thing back on the ground. Looks pretty good. It's funny how high up this thing was. It was so much easier to work on when it's just right here, but obviously I'm going underneath this thing like most of the work. So and then I threw on this just to make it look a little bit better, but I'm probably gonna pull that right back off. Let's see, I think I'm basically done. Like I said, obviously that wire nut, that's gonna go. I still need to do the power steering and alternator. That should just hopefully slip right in, bolt right on. And then like I said, I got high pressure line right there. The hoses are gonna be interesting. The upper one is probably pretty easy because it's just up and over. Although these are 1.5" nipples, and then that's 1.75", or yeah, no, that's 1.25", that's 1.5". And then same thing with down there. And then this one's gonna be challenged. So that reservoir is right there. So that might have to move, but I don't really know where we're gonna put it. Like I said, yeah, the intake we were able to flip over. You already got it painted, that's pretty cool. So I don't even know how that happened and how fast that happened. Let's see, yeah, brake booster, that's already hooked up. I don't see any leaks. And then, yeah, it's just getting a charging system and a cooling system. And then here, let me just start one more time for good measure. Yeah, it's funny how quiet stock 5.3s are. And all of those boxes are now just empty. So gonna break all that down and then have no more parts back here. Besides like the alternator stuff I need to install. So yeah, pretty happy with that. Not bad. You're doing an LS swap technically in 2 full days of work and then a little bit of off-camera stuff. But yeah, now I'm gonna crack on it, finish all the odds and ends. Probably not gonna film any of that. And then hopefully if I do film this thing again, it'll be running, driving, just being a regular vehicle.